There we are. Okay, cool.
Cool.
So, yeah, well, so I'm here today. This is I'm not sure which order I'll be releasing these in here yet, but my name is Drew Adamitis. I'm a student at Wayne State University, and I've been in and out of work with WAT. And as I'm kind of finishing up my degree here, I've got a project for a class I'm creating a series of podcasts for. Figure it'd be a nice bit of content for WAT as well. I'm here today with my guest Jared Grogan. Jared, why don't you introduce yourself and some of the work you do with both Watt and Wayne State?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Jared Grogan. I'm associate professor of teaching, going up for full professor of teaching on this new career trajectory that's been opening up over the years for us. Brief background. I did my PhD at Wayne State. I started in 2006, and then I got hired before I finished. Just about finished in 2011. Um, my area is in rhetoric and composition with an emphasis in professional and technical writing. And as I was figuring out like what my contribution to that area would be at the university, I started looking for opportunities to partner my classes and any other people's classes in technical professional writing with real world work and real world experiences. And that led to quite a bit of work that started about 8 years ago. That was my point of emphasis to start that 8 years ago. And I tried to partner with GM. That was a failed and sort of maybe somewhat foolish initiative. And that led to this work at connecting students with tech town startups. And that's been wonderful. It's been, like I said, about 8 years with, I've worked with over 20, I think over 25 actually, different clients. And about 8 or 9 of those have been longer collaborations or more sustained collaborations with diverse student work. And the one that we're talking about today is Wilson Adaptive. And that's actually been the largest collab and longest collaboration, in part because it involves a physical product, and physical products take more time to develop, often take more time to develop. Sometimes they come quickly. But this one takes quite a bit of time because of the nature of the project. And also just because it's been wonderful for me and for students with diverse projects involving, accessibility research, product development, public health research, web development. It's very interdisciplinary project by nature. I'll talk more about that after. But so that's a big part of what I've been doing lately. So that's me in a nutshell right now, I think.
Awesome. And so, yeah, you mentioned that in general, like you do a lot of work with Watt through this partnership you have with local businesses and Wayne State. So you mentioned a little bit, but if you could just kind of go a little more into detail here about like what about Watt like makes you want to work with them more and for longer than most of the other companies.
So any of the companies that really inspire you have some kind of social impact. Like that's one of our, we have some vetting criteria that we work with to build more robust or larger partnerships with startups, and social and ethical entrepreneurship is a part of that and a big part of that. And so helping people or helping startups make an impact that would help people is the big motivating factor. And then, going back to my meeting with Ron, so Ron Wilson, the founder of Watt, came into Techtown, and uh, his sister worked at Techtown. He had already, so he came into Techtown because of her, and she pumped up Techtown as doing some good work. She'd kind of seen me in passing, and we just, as you do at Techtown as a co-working space, you meet a lot of people in passing, a lot of great people in passing, which is a really cool part of um, what Techtown does. This kind of networking, free networking you get by having a co-working space and meeting all these different people. I was working with 3 other clients at the time. So I was like, you know, taking on a lot on purpose to sort of, learn how to do this well. And I was working with N-Biologics and CarePRN and Idenalock. I think I'm still working with them a little bit too. That was exiting. And then Ron came in from another partnership that was with a couple other universities, which I'll leave unnamed, that had just sort of taken his idea for a portable adaptive shower, excluded him from the product development process, and just like sort of left him hanging and said, kind of like, we'll see you in a year with a prototype. And he was mad. And so when we sat down to talk, I liked his idea. I told him up front, like I'm really busy right now. I might not um, be able to help too much. Um, but we were really motivated by the idea of a portable adaptive shower that could give people access to hygiene. Was really motivated by Ron's knowledge and lived experiences as a veteran and a man living with a disability. He's quadriplegic with a C6, C7 fractured neck vertebrae. Um, and had experienced this problem at various points in his life too. Lots of lived experience, lots of knowledge, lots of love for learning, lots of love for helping people. So that just put like everything in place. I was like, this would be great. And that's really what drew me into WAT initially. And then, this has been a long project. So that was like late 2017. And we really started working with them in 2018. And then we got all this momentum by COVID. COVID started to slow things down. We carried a lot of that momentum through COVID, right to the point where we were pitching for money and had a website up. And this is prior to when I met you, Drew. Um, and then I think met you like shortly after, right? When after Ron had passed away and we'd take some time off and we were kind of starting to reassemble a student project because Ron's family said, what you guys started is great. Could you, pick it up and keep it going and try to bring it back to life? So that really, all that story, there's a long story there, as you can tell, and that really motivated me, personally. This one has a lot of personal connections for me. So yeah, yeah, that's part of it. It's a hard one to cover without going on and on. I need like a 20-minute version of the story. So
Yeah, basically, it's such a good story, and there's so many great elements to it.
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so kind of going more into Ron. So can you tell me like a little bit? Because I never got to meet him, and I
Yeah.
honestly really wish I was.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
but so can you tell me a little bit about him and kind of like the vision? And he brought such a drive to Watt as well. So you can kind of tell me like where his vision was with creating Watt.
Yeah. So absolutely, I really wish you got to meet him first of all because while I pump him up in conversations, he was wonderful. Like he was interesting and loving and super smart, like, basically a master electrician. So, and an inventor, and like loved food and very deeply appreciative. He would tell students like with the deepest gratitude, how much he appreciated their work, even if the work was very raw. He would just gush over how grateful he was to them. He was also easy to, he had the gift of gab. So like, I can talk ad nauseum and so could he. So we could easily engage a group of people and we were very complimentary in, my sort of teaching and academic perspectives and his hands-on and lived experience perspectives really complemented each other really well. So when you speak of like a drive, I think it was like a great fit. And what he needed and really craved, I think, was meaningful work that with people, that was inclusive, like co-design work, which was the first thing, the very first meeting. I said, well, if you're being excluded from this project, first of all, that would be the exact opposite of how I would approach it. Like you'd be involved in everything. We'd do co-design work. I've always wanted to do co-design work where people various people are involved, various stakeholders, various product users, various community stakeholders are involved in designing something. Awesome. Like that was my wheelhouse. I knew a fair bit about that and wanted to develop my understanding. And he's like, that sounds great. And he also said, by the way, so you're not an engineering prof? I said, no, because it had ENG beside my name on the TechTown website. So he thought I was an engineering professor. I think several other people did around the community too. I was like, no, so sadly, I'm an English professor, but we, I can bring engineering perspectives into the project and stuff like that. So that's what kicked off the mission that still exists right now for the company, and that will carry it forward into like next year when we're going to hand off the company to a team or a new team. We're going to build a new team in early 2025. That's our so Ron's heart and soul will be in the mission from that point until, or it has been in that point as part of the mission until now. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. The more I hear about him, I mean, the more he just seems like such an amazing, like talented guy, and I mean, yeah, like there's just I constantly hear like new things from you or like other people, like where it's just like, wait, he did that. I forgot that he was an inventor. That he like had all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff he
He
was
had
cooking
like
up.
a he had at one point in his driveway, I think of his previous home. He built himself like a sort of overly nice, accessible house when he got his first settlement, like including with like a pond um, for fishing in, and like a hydroponic system so he could grow things, and a little bridge over it so he could like wheel himself out there and fish and watch it grow. And in that driveway of that house, he had like 12 to 20 vans at any given time that he was experimenting on how to make them more accessible at a lower cost for other people with disabilities. Um, because it's very expensive to own an accessible van, and that's what he relied on to get around. After he sort of had to get rid of his accessible Corvette that he first bought. Don't forget that he was paralyzed in an industrial accident when he was 27. So he had kind of the 27-year-old mindset, uh, which he would laugh about later. He's like, I probably, I shouldn't have spent half of my settlement on this $1 million home and, fancy car. And then tried to live off the rest because he didn't realize how expensive it would be. So by the time we'd met him in his 50s, he was a little bit more focused on practical solutions and quite the guy. And he was so like interesting, and students really noticed that he was experiencing pain, so he would swear. He smoked, and he's like, I know I shouldn't smoke, but it's a small pleasure for me. He'd love a good burger and a beer after a semester. He was definitely a character that you recognized as both interesting, intelligent, flawed. He shared his mistakes that he made, with his money and in his relationships and stuff. He was very open about all that, which just made him more engaging. And his sister will tell you, Wendy, stories about him that I don't know. I keep learning stuff about how he mentored her and was hard on her. And I didn't know also till the funeral that his nickname was the professor. So in our relationship, like I was the professor. He used to call me the conductor. And, but when he was young, people used to call him the professor and he used to walk to school with a briefcase with like electronics in it and stuff that he just like take apart. And this is when he was like in like a suit. A real
Really
total.
playing up the mad scientist bit there.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm sure, and he had lots of stories about his life as a Marine and stuff too. So yeah, he definitely lived a rich life both before his accident and after.
Hmm. Yeah. So through this kind of program that's developed, which are you still calling it Tech Comet Tech Town or
Yeah,
okay?
down, and we're calling it an initiative because it's 8 years in. We kind of know what we're doing, and we're right now actually looking to sort of solidify a few things. Probably next academic year, establish a bit more funding, connections with internship programs, and yeah, that come at Tech Town.
Cool. Yeah. So through Tech Comet Tech Town, you work with like lots of students. Probably, I'd say about 100 every year. Um, so could you explain, kind of, because it's a very different workflow working with students than it is working with actual employees who are putting in work and you're paying them. So could you kind of explain for me some of like both the good parts, some of the benefits, and also some of the challenges that you get from working with students specifically for WAT?
Yeah, well, it's been kind of great as challenging as it is at times. It's great to have something that's always meaningful and there for students. I feel a little bit guilty sometimes. I think unnecessarily. It's just because the pace has been slow. But with Ron's passing, a pandemic, and a product development, there's been some real ups and then real downs in terms of progress for the startup. Right? We are making good, steady progress again now, at a reasonable pace. And I think things we're aiming to have things accelerate next year. So um, for students, it's like there's always projects, right? There's always disciplinary projects that range from public health to engineering to IT to disability studies, and including liberal arts students doing research on accessibility and disability rights. And we had social justice money come in to support co-design project that had a disciplinary design script. I'm sorry about that. And then, so that's wonderful. You can always include students, and we've included students from class projects, obviously. That's the primary driver of TechCom at TechTown is to bring these startups to class and to design projects that, right, generate genres that support their research and development of their startup. Um, and then, of course, we have students who are like, find it interesting and want to keep working, and they can do like volunteer work and carry on with projects. Sometimes we get funding for that. We've gotten funding for WAT for that, and I've helped support that. And you were part of that coming out of the pandemic, where we got a little money from the university to support some internships with web development, and we did some work for two startups in that summer. We had like what 7 of us, I think, working then. That was cool.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, and then so then we can also sponsor internships. So I've managed several internships for WAT. Um, Often for students looking for valuable experience to put on their resume. And I guess the hard part is when they come and go, like we have a handful of people like you who are like, I got to go do this other work for a while, or we, obviously encouraging you to grow and find other internships. And then you disappear and then cycle back through or keep in touch through our WhatsApp group and check in. And other students kind of come and then go, and then you don't really, they might check in a year later just to say hello. So that can be tough for developing continuity, and you always have to be really student centered. So, um, but that's our number one criteria for working with these clients is that we put student learning first. So, yeah, it can be challenging, but because of the nature of this project, like I'm not tired of it. Personally, I imagine with some projects you get burned out. Start Entrepreneurs get burnt out all the time. Like it's a regular occurrence that they find it to be 5 years into a project, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm still not really making any money, and I better go get a job.
Yeah.
So you can experience a similar thing in a role like mine where you're teaching and coordinating and project managing. Um, but those are challenges. I definitely had semesters where I put in a lot of work for no extra money. Um, I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful of that. I can't do that forever, but I was able to, show my work as kind of an innovative, which I was like part of the goal. I wanted to do something new, newish. There's other people in the country doing this, and I went into conferences and talked to them, and as I was setting things up. But then you have to do it yourself and learn yourself. So that was also all that extra work that I put in. Is stuff that I put into my promotion process, and like this is what I think I'm doing that helps me deserve a promotion as a teaching professor. Um, and so thanks to the students for helping me do that because I learned with them on various projects. Yeah, so it's a challenge, learning challenge, but it's been cool. I think for the most part, we haven't had very many mediocre experiences. Like the projects are at least good, very good, or outstanding. So um, try to keep that going for the next year or so with WAT here, and then pivot a little bit our relationship with them, and carry on with a few new partners.
Yeah. I think one of the things you said there that's really nice is kind of it's a rare thing for students to get. I mean, most of us, some of us aren't, but most of us are like myself, and we're going to school to get into a job, right? We have this idea of where we want our field to be, and so we want to get into our career. And at this point, I'm like in year 5 here. I'm chomping at the bit, ready to get out of here. I'm like, just give me into my field already. And so it's nice to like take a break from like classes and theory and stuff, and actually get to like get our hands dirty and like actually start working with real people on real projects. It's something you don't get enough of in school.
Totally. Yeah. And I feel that puts us in a good place now with our new president and our emphasis on college to careers. Um, this is an example of, one way that this can be done well. And I think the school will start creating support systems that will make this kind of work a little bit easier and more effective to, um, in fact, there's a new platform that came out, was released this morning that allows you to pitch projects that can align you with students and mentorship. So, at the end of the semester, I'll put WAT together on this new platform, and um, it might help make recruiting a little easier, or get more work for WAT, and then future startups too. So giving students more opportunities to see how this could work. And I could even just like put projects together and share them there so that students can get started a bit earlier, and um, need to really sort of get to work, and then I'll do more work in facilitating the human interaction and the workshops and stuff, and getting people off their screens and out of their house and into the community to talk with other people and experts and students and stakeholders.
Yeah, so that's another thing we don't get enough of nowadays is community interaction.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I do miss Ron for that, but Wendy's really stepped up this semester and has been participating more. And we've been, I think, well, that was part of the goal for this year, but I'm trying to make sure that her role as a stakeholder is that she's involved, and that she's, included in a way that helps her collaborate, and that I think this is the more underlying and obvious goal right now, is that she's empowered to make decisions about what to do with the company now
Mm-hmm.
that it's got a minimum viable product, and a good mission and a decent business plan, and so
There's a nice
uh,
base right now.
it's a nice base right now for her. Yeah,
Yeah. So in addition to these, like the TechCon projects, which are 3,000 level, so it's generally um, all undergrads, and you got a lot of underclassmen, a few upperclassmen, but mostly kind of younger students. Watts
yeah,
also worked with a few senior level engineering students on their capstone projects. So
yeah.
could you guys like tell me a little bit about how those capstone projects, because they have a different flow. Can you tell me a little bit how they are like different than the TechCon projects?
Yeah, they're totally different. We had a few years back, I was teaching a lot of 5,000 level tech com classes too, and I was bringing clients through those. And we did, that was, prior to the pandemic. I felt like I was kind of monopolizing those classes, and other teaching professors needed and wanted to teach them. So I made, my director aware that I'd like other people to have the opportunity to teach those classes. But then so I'm the writing coach for this engineering technology capstone class. I get paid a little extra money every semester to coach them through writing the reports, and um, just naturally, I share what I've been doing at TechTown with the faculty there, Dr. Yaprak in particular, and I said, like sometimes we have projects that are interesting, and she's very open to, improve. Her job is to try to improve this class. Like part of her job right now as chair is to improve the senior capstone class. And she said, well, that would be awesome if you could pitch some projects. So I really show up early in the semester when they're talking about like their need to propose a project, and they have a very short window, like a week and a half, to propose an idea and to find a faculty advisor from engineering or IT or welding, and bring that to Dr. Yaprak as a feasible project where they have to build something. So for what I student volunteers and I just pitched that project, saying, here's some engineering needs, here's what you could do. So we've done that like 4 times. Once when we had our previous round of good momentum going into the pandemic, and then unfortunately, the student who was going to do a full prototype build, his name was Max Vaselli, lovely guy, was actually a student in my 3050 class also, and then taking his capstone class. Asked if he could backpack that project into the senior capstone class, and built a um, full scale prototype. But the pandemic hit, so it just like sat in this garage, and it was too big to fit in my car to bring to Wayne State. And then we sort of pivoted away from that prototype, so we just took pictures and videos, and he probably disassembled it by now. And then future projects, actually some in a different senior capstone class, were backpacked in from a student from during the pandemic, from a student of mine, Fahimul Islam, who was a really great electrical engineering student, and met with Ron and social distance with him in the driveway to work on the prototype of the pump development system, and worked in various sensors. And then what happened is interesting. Sometimes in that class, in the ET 4999 class, you have some students who are returning students who have already been working in engineering for quite some time, and are just like upgrading their degree so they can get a promotion. Um, and they're really typically interested in this project. They see it as kind of a break from the status quo of their engineering work and are interested in the social mission. So we've had now people work on what we're calling prototypes 3 and 4, and with some real skill, and also a brand new externalized pump system for Watt. So we got like three pretty good engineering projects in the past year and a half to help get us to where we're at, and that's going to save Watt a ton of money as we organize that and hand it off to engineering firms to see what they can do to work with us. So that's been really cool. Unfortunately, we got no interest this semester. And what's interesting though is that the department, I was in there the other day for an accreditation meeting, and they asked me to talk about this too to these accreditors who maintain the program's standards so that they can grant degrees. It was a pretty high stakes meeting. They were very interested in it too. So um, and then all the other professors were there who are like these engineering professors, and they were really disappointed that there was no WAT project this semester. They have a brand new makerspace, and they're like, we want to get using this makerspace to start building components for the shower. So they're going to actually do a little bit at the end of this semester with some 3D prints of the new prototype at a larger scale, and then we're going to use those to recruit next semester so we can keep pushing forward. I wasn't too disappointed because our point of emphasis this semester is a little bit more on gathering more user feedback, and we have a partnership with the VA to help with that. So it was kind of okay, but it was pretty interesting to see how um, these engineering faculty of various types were like, they were proud of their student work. They were interested in making sure that we kept going with it a little bit further here. So we'll make that happen next semester a little bit more again.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, it's sometimes there's not always that work that needs to get done. It is as I was kind of sitting through that one group. I think it was actually this time last year.
Yeah,
They one thing I was noticing too is they are because it's capstone. They have it's their class is basically just working on this project, and they're also been in school a little longer. Sometimes you get some returning students, and so you get some really passionate people that are putting like a lot of time and effort into working on this. It feels like you get a little more like focused work done
yeah.
throughout those partnerships, and then through like the tech com classes where there's a lot more into those classes than just working with Watt and other
Yeah,
tech town
yeah, they
class.
really focused engineering work last year. Last year, this time, um, was working with that team of four, and they developed two AB prototypes that were, really fleshed out with their CAD designs and designed for assembly ideas and stuff. It was pretty great. And then the next semester, we had a rock star talent come in, and those students even stuck around to sort of onboard the new student and worked with him. They donated a 3D printer to us. Like, talk about generosity from senior students at Wayne State too, when they start to, some of them were working already, so they had some financial means and to support a little bit more advanced work as well. And it was great.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of wrapping it up here because we're at about half an hour of recording here. Um, what is for people that might be listening to this, whether they're investors, people at Wayne State, or however else, if you're interested in working with Watt, which you should be because they're an amazing company, they're not only making a great shower, but like doing a lot for the social mission and like looking at how we end up treating people with disabilities in this country, how we end up kind of overlooking them and, just kind of pushing them out of sight, out of mind sometimes. For anyone that's interested in getting involved with Watt, could you kind of tell me a few ways where they might be able to get involved?
Yeah, well, right as this podcast will go live, or shortly, roughly around the same time, we'll have a newsletter, our first newsletter coming out. Um, they can reach out to us at any time and talk about ways to volunteer or to partner in various ways. Specifically, we're taking on some grants and a combination of grants and investment. We've got our investment readiness project going. So we're making a few improvements, but we're pitching to investors at the end of next semester, both as part of the project through the Illich School. Just have to confirm that that's a go, but right now it's being planned out, um, and then we'll start pitching in the community too. And some of that pitching will be very like recruitment based. So we'll really promote our mission and make sure that people know that this is a company with a mission, and that if they're interested in any of these issues that we can help solve that are social justice issues to some extent or deeply in some ways, and assistive technologies connections with social justice are kind of at the core of what we do, and co-design is at the core of what we do. And then we are working on a physical product that's smart and appropriate technologically, not overly high tech just for the sake of that, but has some high tech components, and which can be added on or taken away from a shower that has features that's really designed to be useful to people. People are interested in that kind of stuff. We will find ways to have them participate, and there's various levels of participation from volunteering to becoming a core team member, and that's going to be an equity-based partnership for people as we recruit and build the team around it with a little bit of money and intent on making money so that we, as Ron used to say, um, intervene in a market that's really exploitative and unfair. So we're going to redefine fair market value for this product and start intervening in a market that needs positive interventions to set some things straight. So if you're interested in those kind of changes, and then joining us in various capacities is going to be more than welcome.
Awesome. Well, I think that just about brings us to a close. Unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about here that I didn't, any talking points you wanted to cover that I didn't get in my questions here.
No, that's great. We're open to more conversations anytime.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for coming on and being an open book. And yeah, keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Wonderful.
All right. See you later, Jared.
Okay, see you, man.